You know that feeling when you're praying and it just feels like a monologue, like you're just talking into the air? Well, today we're going to dig into this really cool model I found in a daily devotional that completely flips that script. It reframes prayer as a real, two-way conversation. So let's explore how listening before we speak can actually change everything.
All right, here's the game plan. First, we're going to tackle that common feeling of prayer being a one-way street. Then, we'll get into the core idea of hearing before speaking. After that, we'll see how this whole thing works with a great example, and finally, we'll talk about how to actually put this into practice.
So let's jump right in. The source material we're looking at starts with the question that honestly gets right to the heart of a pretty common struggle with prayer.
I mean, seriously, think about it. Does it ever feel like a one-way conversation to you? Like you're the only one talking? It's such a common experience, right? And that's exactly the problem that this devotional zeroes in on. So here's the argument it makes. When our prayers are totally disconnected from Scripture, when we just talk and talk without listening first, they can end up feeling kind of, repetitive and powerless. We get stuck in this loop, saying the same old things, without any real guidance. And this comparison just lays it all out so clearly. On one side, you've got the monologue. It feels disconnected, and like the text says, it can become powerless. But on the other side, you've got a dialogue. This approach is rooted in revelation, in what God has already said. And that, the source argues, is what leads to really effective prayer, because you're aligning what you're asking for with a bigger divine agenda. Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution? Well, this leads us to the absolute core idea of the devotional. It's a total paradigm shift it calls hearing before speaking. And this quote just nails it. The big idea here is that the most powerful prayers aren't the ones we just come up with on our own. Nope. They're actually a response to something we've already heard or read. It's about reacting to God's instruction, not just kicking off the conversation ourselves. And this is such a key distinction. You know, a ritual can be a one-way street. It's something you just do. But a relationship, that needs two-way communication. It's a give and take. And the text is basically saying prayer is meant to be this relational thing, a real conversation, not just a box to check off a to-do list. All right, so this all sounds great in theory, but what does it actually look like in practice? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of how this model works, and we'll even check out a really powerful example from the text. Okay, so the source lays out this super simple, three-step process it calls the divine order. It's beautiful. Step 1, God speaks, usually through Scripture. Step 2, we respond to that specific thing in our prayer, and then, Step 3, that response actually opens the door for God to reveal even more. See? It's like this awesome, ongoing cycle. And to show this isn't just some abstract idea, the devotional gives us a perfect case study, the story of Daniel from the Bible. His experience is presented as the ideal example of this divine order in action. Let's break it down. So check this out. Daniel didn't just start praying out of nowhere. First, the revelation. He was reading the book of Jeremiah and understood something specific about a prophecy. Then, the response. What he read directly provoked his prayer. He was praying about what he just discovered. And the result? His prayer was incredibly focused and powerful precisely because it was rooted in a promise that had already been revealed. So that brings us to the big question, right? How can we take this model from theory to practice? How do we actually do this in our own lives? Well, the source gives some very clear practical steps. And it all starts with this. Before you even open your mouth to pray, the text suggests you pause and ask this one simple but honestly game-changing question. What has God already said concerning this matter? It's all about grounding your prayer in something that's already been established. And here's the practical to-do list. The source is calling us to really engage with Scripture as the launch pad for our prayers. Notice the action words here. Use it as a starting point. Let it instruct your prayers. Let it even correct your motives. And I love this last one, journaling scriptures that stand out to you. It's such a great way to really nail down that first hearing step before you move on to the speaking part. And you know, this brings us right back to the foundational verse for this whole idea. This line from Jeremiah just sums it all up, doesn't it? The invitation is to call. That's our response. And the promise is that God will answer and show or reveal more. It's the whole divine order, right there in one verse. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with this one thought. Think about it. In prayer, in your relationships, in any conversation, what really changes when you make listening the very first step? That's the challenge and the invitation from this whole idea. Thanks for exploring it with me.